if you did not patronize the commissary, you might well lose your job, or you might get, approached in some sort of physical way. There's no telling what they might do. My dad worked in Verda for 30 years, and we stayed in the same little interesting house for the whole time. Let me try to describe Verda for you. And there was a white Verda and there was a black Verda. Georgetown was covered over by the Corps of Engineers coming in to save Harlan. No remnants of the community at all. They would be lost in somebody's memory.
This is Harlan County, Kentucky. We're across the river and on the other side of the flood wall from the city of Harlan. We're at the Harlan Independent School District's sports complex. The only sounds here now are the sounds of high school athletes and their fans cheering them on under the Friday night lights. But if you come here on a quiet day, under the breeze, sometimes you can hear the echoes of children playing and neighbors talking. You can hear the sounds of a vibrant community that once existed here. That community was Georgetown, a black community that existed alongside Harlan for many years. The 1977 flood devastated Georgetown and led to the Army Corps of Engineers bulldozing the remains of it out of the side of history to make room for a flood wall to protect the city of Harlan. Georgetown now only exists in the hearts and memories of the people who once called it home. People like Alaska Les Williams. Mr. Williams has wrote a book about his memories of Georgetown called Extra Extra. Read all about it. Georgetown Stories by Daddy-O the Paperboy. We were fortunate enough to be able to meet him when he visited the Harlan Public Library to share some stories from his book. We also visited with him the site of the old Rosenwald School in Harlan, where he shared some stories about this historic black school in Harlan and many of its graduates who went on to success in life and some who became prominent citizens. Mr. Williams is a gifted storyteller, and I hope you enjoy our visit with him as much as we did. We hope to work with him again in the future.
How in the world did you end up in Harlan County?
It was bloody Harlan.
Bloody Harlan. Well, there again, in the early 1900s, there was precious little work for anyone who didn't have some family connection. You had to find a job, and many people were coming from the south to the north looking for work, and Harlan County was a mecca of work. I mean, Lynch, the U.S. Steel built that whole community for their workers because they needed workers, and so workers came here for the coal mines, and my father was one of them. And what would happen is they would bring their family members along with them after a time. And so my uncle migrated here because of my father, and he spent 17 years working in the coal mine. And just to expand on that, and the blessing that I've had just knowing my uncle, I was able to migrate to Cleveland because of him. I was able to go have somewhere to stay. I slept at the foot of my cousin's bed for a year or so because there was no room in the house. Yeah. But they, the beauty about family, they allowed me to impose. Yeah. And they were living with her mother when I came. And they just, so when you're a family, it wasn't like, we don't have room, but there's a spot over here. Yeah. So Georgetown was not a coal camp. We lived in the city, just across the river from downtown Harlan. So we got paid in cash, and we were able to go and buy whatever we everyone else bought. If you know anything about a coal camp, it's like sharecropping. You know, you really are working for the owner, and he controls every aspect of your life. You rent from him. You go to the commissary and you buy food from him, and the commissary had everything, toys, and and if you did not patronize the commissary, you might well lose your job, or you might get, approached in some sort of physical way. There's no telling what they might do. And not only that, you were paid with script. It was really a currency. So you didn't get monies to go and buy anywhere else, because you had to go to the commissary to get your script redeemed or used for whatever merchandise you needed. A little side story. When I was I was in my second career, because I had just spent 27 years working for a company in Cleveland, and I had occasion to get a job in Ironton, Ohio, which is the south edge of Ohio, on the Ohio River. And Ironton's a small town, okay? And so when I was there working, they told stories that you were only allowed to go shopping like on Wednesday, if you were a black person. You can only go shopping certain days. So it's just a side story. Every time I think about script and how restricted it was, there was other areas where it was restricted for other reasons. But Georgetown, you could rent anywhere. Anybody. We changed homes. Go from one house to whatever house would be a vacant, and you can move from one house to the next and all that kind of stuff. In a coal camp, there was not very much movement. Whatever house you had is what you had, and you kept it until you moved on to another job, and that wasn't too often. My dad worked in Verda for 30 years, and we stayed in the same little interesting house for the whole time. Let me try to describe Verda for you. And there was a white Verda and there was a black Verda, but the black Verda, you come across the bridge, and then on the left-hand side there was this little convenience store, and you went down this, and when they say rocky road, trust me, there was some big boulders in the road in Verda. Oh my God. But anyway, and so we lived on the other side of the tipple. The tipple is where they transferred the coal from the mountain down to the railroad track. That was the conveyor system. So we lived on the back side of the tipple, and in a little house, you step off the road, and you're right on the porch. And my aunt and uncle lived in the house right across the street. And my aunt and my mother, they bore 5 kids each over the 17 years that they lived right across the street from each other. And that meant that they did what they call it, the midwife duty for each other. So, but yeah, that was a coal camp, and if you worked for the coal company, you lived in the coal company's house, and if you worked for the coal company, you bought the food from the coal company store.
This gives me an opportunity to kind of give you a profile of Georgetown. Georgetown was a subset of Harlan, Kentucky. And Harlan was on one side, the city of Harlan was on one side of the bridge, and Georgetown was on the railroad side. Okay. And the flood zone, every spring, Georgetown would flood or get high water because the tributaries would flow into that area. It would fill up, and Georgetown would get flooded out many times. And you cross the bridge and you ran into Kentucky Avenue, and you turned right, and you went down to the ballpark, and we had a beautiful ballpark. We had a football field, basketball court, tennis court. We had swings. We had teeter-totters. We had everything a child could want to play with in our park. And our house was only 5 doors away from the park. So it was a fabulous place to live and grow up. And you have to realize that Georgetown was a real small community, if you will. You had Kentucky Avenue, and the other main street was Green Street, where my wife lived. And Kentucky Avenue ran from the Mills' house all the way down to the park. And Green Street was about in the middle. And there were alleys. There was one alley that ran all the way on alongside the railroad track on the along Kentucky Avenue all the way down to the park area. Then we had alleys that cut from Kentucky Avenue over to the river, and each of the alleys maybe had 10 homes at the most. Each of them had about that many. So it meant about 60 homes, but we had the split was Kentucky was Green Street, and the rest of it was down. We call it because down the street gang and up the street gang. Can you imagine we had gangs? We never did anything with them, but we called ourselves gangs. But that was Georgetown, and we moved in, and we had the Flukers had about 8 kids. The Millses had 8 kids. We had all sorts of families about 4 or 5 families that just in the down the street group that had as many kids as we did. So it was a lot of kids, and we all had somebody to play with. And I always remember the one thing that comes to mind is that when we moved, kind of carried this up. Being a paper boy, you had to. Everybody was your customer, if you're regular customers, but then the rest of the community might buy one of your papers, and they might become a customer. And if they bought one of the extra papers, they're a customer right on. So you live your life in an uplifted way, and at least I did. And I enjoyed interacting with my main customers as well as the community. And so, but the one thing is that in 1959, there was the Greyhound bus station. I want to focus on that for a second. There was actually a peeping hole in the back, something like, maybe 12 by 12 or something like that, where you'd have to go, if you were black, and order whatever you wanted to buy, a sandwich or maybe a drink or whatever. That's where you had to go. And if you were traveling, and you were black, that's what you had to do, was go to that pigeonhole and order whatever you'd like to buy. Contrast to that, there was this big picture window up front where you had a big counter, and they had servant and a waitress, and you could go there and get your food and sit there and enjoy it. But that's the way it was in 1959 in Harlan, Kentucky. And the VTC line bus station was separated also and you could go back in the back in the VTC line, and there was booths back there for black folks to sit and get their food. It was much nicer than the Greyhound bus station. And it was occasion that my wife and I, at that time, I was in high school, and we would at lunch hour, we would kind of rendezvous right behind at the VTC line, area where blacks were served.
The portion that he was talking about was a project that Larry Kirksey and I started in 2023, okay? And Larry had been a football player here, and he had gone on and had a storied career. He coached, after playing a great amount of football himself and doing quite well, he went on and was allowed to be a professional football coach. And he even coached Jerry Rice, and he has a Super Bowl ring. The state of Kentucky has a process that they recognize people and they put them in the State Football Hall of Fame. And he was inducted in 2022. And I heard about it. I said to myself, I said, my God, if I'm not mistaken, he must have elevated himself as high as anyone that I know that has come from this little town. Yeah. And it should be something that we should recognize, something that is worthy. So I called Larry, and I said, man, look here. First of all, I'm excited and thrilled and proud of you for being inducted into the Football Hall of Fame. And I'd like to do something to recognize you. He said, that's okay, but we want to do something about Georgetown as well, you know. And so we started out trying to raise some money to recognize Georgetown. And I had asked my son to fashion a petition to get the football field over where Georgetown used to be named Georgetown Recreation, field or Georgetown Recreation Park, and to have Larry's name affixed to the football field in some manner, the football, the field house or something like that. And so we, my son, Darren, which is, I should stop right here and celebrate him as well as my daughter. And you'll see in the book, my daughter's, of course, a medical doctor, and we're very proud of her. And, she works for Mayo Clinic in Phoenix, and she's head of family practice. So she runs one of their centers. Modestly, she's an amazingly modest young lady. And my son has his PhD. He graduated from the University of Texas, and he decided he wanted to be a doctor. So I got two doctors, and I'm proud of both of them. I'm a doctor producer. Oh God! But at any rate, he helped me fashion this petition, okay, that asks the school system to do the things that I thought was the right thing to do, and so we started out doing that. I had spent 8 years being the president of the Rosenwald Harlanites, and I had this one project that I hadn't completed. So I said, we need to try to still raise some money to get a bench or something like that to say that Georgetown used to be, you know what I mean? And so I had used some of my political capital. I'd raised $2,500, okay? And my wife and my older brother, he's an attorney, and we're in his kitchen, and I raised the money, and I'm getting ready to try to raise a little bit more and try to do something with it. And I had just finished my term at 8 years of being the president of the national organization. And they told me, you're not longer the president anymore. You shouldn't be doing da-da-da-da-da. I said, hey, if that's the way you look at it, I'm going to send the money back. I had 300 of his dollars. I think he was trying to get his money back. No, I'm just kidding. But what I did, I sent that money back to the people that had sent it to me. And lo and behold, the Lord decided that he was going to recognize Georgetown anyway. And instead of me using that $2,100, Larry and I raised $40,000. $40,000 instead of the $2,100. Sometimes you just let the Lord say, leave the devil's work. Don't worry about him. I got him. I got him. I got something better for you. $40,000. We raised that money in 1 year.
That's fantastic.
In 1 year. It was and I tell the story, it wasn't our effort, it was a miracle.
Yes.
Because when we were on this journey, we were trying to raise money for Georgetown Plaque. And Larry said, well, how much is it going to cost? I said, well, it's going to cost us about $10,000. And so we were raising the money. And so he gave me a call, and he said, I got a friend of mine that he said he wants to help us. And he said he'll give us $10,000. I said, what? And by that time, we had raised a few dollars, and I was still soliciting. And so I said, oh, man, that's fantastic, man. He said, but just like Julius Rosenwald, you had to get the participants, the community had to help. And so he just said that we got to match it. So we had to raise $10,000 ourselves. So I put my $1,000 in, Larry put his money in, and so we were going about raising the $10,000 of Mr. Sutton's money. And so I had every once in a while I have a thought, I said, well, why don't you call the Corps of Engineers and see if they can help you raise some of this money. And so I called the Corps of Engineers. And the reason I called them is because the Corps of Engineers had spent $181 million to cover over Georgetown to save Harlem, okay? $181 million. I said, man, if they spent that kind of money, they ought to do a little something to help us remember Georgetown, So I called them, and I said, we'll be on a project that we think that you should be able to help us with. And the girl said, believe it or not, I'm about to head up a program to do just that, to recognize people that are displaced with some of our projects. Wow. And so as it would happen, I was rolling, and she said this would be a perfect pilot program because you guys are already on your way, right? And I said, well, okay, great. So that's what they decided to help us. And so they were doing their work, blah, 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 blah. And so the girl called me after a while, and she said, guess what? We're going to pay for the whole thing. So they paid for the Georgetown plaque completely. And so at that point, we had started raising that other money, that $20,000 that Mr. Sutton needed us to raise, and 10 of his plus our 10. And so we had $20,000 that we had in the pipeway, if you will. But we don't need to spend it on the Georgetown plaque anymore because the Corps of Engineers took that little thing off our plate. Can you believe that? And so we, at that point we said, what are we going to do? That's when the Rosenwald plaques were born, because they weren't on our page from the beginning, but since we got the Georgetown plaque paid for by the miracle that the Corps of Engineers decided to do, Mr. Sutton, another miracle to give us $10,000 for our project completely. So it was a miracle after a miracle, that what you see on the mountainside didn't start that way, but it was born because of the $2,100 I sent back. So the Lord has a way of blessing you if you just keep doing His work. Amen. And so that's what the culmination of the book is. And I hope you enjoy the many aspects of it. And if you ever have an occasion you want me to expand on any of the stories, I'm always available. I've had this phone number for a lot of years, and I, being the president of a national organization, I've shared it, and I continue to answer the phone. So if you need to talk about it, you want to talk about it, I'm available to you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Yeah. All right.
This is the plaque to commemorate the Georgetown community that Les was telling us about at the library. He's going to tell us about the plaque right now.
Okay. Well, this plaque was paid for by the Corps of Engineers. And this part of the statement refers to the flood and why they had to mitigate the water to protect the greater community of Harlan. And what they did was spend $181 million to stop the water from entering the city of Harlan, the commercial area. This part was developed by Larry Kirksey and myself to talk about our community. And so we had a statement that would reflect on what we felt when we lived there. It was just a wonderful place to grow up, and we loved Georgetown. And so we started to list out the heads of households, as many as we could find. We used the census of 1950 to make sure that we had some of the names correct, and our memory and our wives' memory and our family's memory is how we developed the list.
This will be available for the public to see and look at when it's mounted.
Absolutely. The city of Harlan is going to build a bridge from the city side over to the Georgetown land side, which is now the football recreation park. And this will be mounted on either side, not sure which side, of the bridge to commemorate our beloved Georgetown.
And these are, I want to mention, just the heads of the household. So
exactly. We needless to say, we couldn't list out all the children and, the mule and the horse and all that stuff. That was Georgetown. And my father, Alonzo Sr. S.C. Williams, those are my parents.
Folks, we are so fortunate today to get a chance to visit with and listen to him tell some stories. Alaska Les Williams, the author of Extra Extra, read all about it, Georgetown Stories by Daddy-O the Paperboy. These are stories of growing up in Georgetown in Harlan County, and they're incredible stories, and we can't wait to read the book. We got our own, got it signed, and we're going to tell you how to get yours. There's a QR code on the screen right now, and it was at the beginning of the video. You scan that, freeze whatever you're watching it on, and scan it with your phone, and it'll tell you how to get the book. In the information section below this video, we will put the Amazon link to where you can buy this book, and we will pin it in the comment section.
All right. Thank you so much. This is my story about my hometown and about some of the incidents that happened there. And they have, we've copied in the newspaper articles as well as other articles that tell you just what the book is all about. And it's been a pleasure developing it, and I'm hoping that you will enjoy it once you get one.
Now, Georgetown is a community that is no more.
Exactly. Georgetown was covered over by the Corps of Engineers coming in to save Harlan by mitigating the water that was coming in and flooding out not only Georgetown, but the city of Harlan. And now they've got a flood system, flood wall, that protects the city, but the area that was Georgetown is on the other side of that wall. And it's now a football field, tennis court, and it's a sports area. But there's no homes that are over there now.
Absolutely no remnant of the community.
No remnants of the community at all. At this time, we're trying to encourage them to rename that area to recognize the fact that Georgetown was there. It'd be nice to have it Georgetown Community Park. And also, Mr. Larry Kirksey should be recognized as a renowned football entity. And his name should be on the football field. So we want to encourage people to continue to support that effort.
All righty, we thank you so much. This is the site of the historic Rosenwald School in Harlan County, which is no more.
Rosenwald was developed in 1920s. They raised money to build a school. Julius Rosenwald donated funds to the community, but the community had to match his funds, and they raised money to build a school. And we decided that we needed to remember the school because it was closed in 1964, and they graduated people from Rosenwald from 1933 to 1963. We are celebrating each and every person that graduated from Rosenwald on these plaques. So each and every person that graduated from Rosenwald is on, their names are on the plaques.
Now this is the Rosenwald School was the school, the black school in Harlan County before segregation.
Absolutely. There was a Rosenwald School starting in 1920. They started graduating people out of the Rosenwald. It went up to on high school because initially it was only up to the 8th grade or so. But then they started graduating to the high school level in 1933. And these are all of the principal teachers that taught at Rosenwald, as well as
the plaque is the teachers.
The teachers, as well as the staff. Mr. Wood was the principal, and he also was a principal person from the Rosenwald Fund to start the school, and then the community raised money to build a school. The Rosenwald Harlanites Incorporated, a national organization that raised money to dedicate this this part of the celebration.
You know, and I'd like to ask one question that we was talking about before I turned the camera on. Perhaps the signs should be turned around so people would actually have some room to stand and read them?
We're hoping so, and the mayor said it's on his list.
Yeah, because there's more room on the other side.
Yeah,
than there
a little more room over here. This was
All of this was, yeah.
the school, and then there was a community also up there. But yeah, this was part of the school building.
And once again, if not for these plaques, you would not know anything was here.
If it wasn't for the plaques, there would be no recognition of all of these people that are recognized on the plaques. It would be lost in somebody's memory. But now we have them, and anyone could come and remember just by looking at the actual list and enjoy the fact that it'll be here forever.
Hey folks, thank you guys so much for coming along with us and listening to Les Williams, Alaska Williams, tell his stories of growing up in the forgotten community of Harlan County that shouldn't be forgotten, Georgetown. We really appreciate you guys, and we hope you got as much out of this as we did, because this is incredible, and I'd like to sit down with him for a couple of more hours at least, because he's got a lot of stories.
Oh, yes.
But anyway, thank you guys. What do we say at the end of these videos? Bye!
Bye!
God bless you guys.
See you on the next one.
Okay, see ya.